Hi guys, it's Roy from Bellados 3D here, back from a year-long hiatus. Unfortunately, due to long-term illness and a heavy work schedule, I've been unable to upload any videos for quite some time. But I managed to find a bit of time now, so hopefully we will be getting back to a more regular schedule. And with this video, we'll be getting back to the grassroots of the channel, and I will be creating this low-poly cartoon-style bucket that you see on screen. So without much more ado, let's get modeling. Okay, so here we go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press N and I'm going to go into the menu, find screencast keys and tick it on and make sure that it is on so that you can see what keys I'm pressing and what I'm doing with the mouse. Next, I'm going to go and quickly switch this back to material preview mode. So there's no light and shadow info, so it's easier to work with. And in front of the graphic view, I'm going to scroll it out, GX, and move that to the side. And we'll keep that there as a reference. What I want to do is press Shift A and add a cylinder. And we're going to change the number of vertices on that to 14. And then in edit mode, GZ and 1. Now I think I want to select this top edge by Alt left clicking the edge there, GZ, and move that just up slightly, just a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to scale that out. I want it out possibly, I don't know, about there, I'd say. And then we're going to put, with Control R, we're going to put an edge loop in there, and we're going to scale that in about there. And if we press Control B and scale up, and just roll it up, say, twice with this scroll wheel, and click. Now, if we look at it in edit mode, you can see there's a nice curve there to the bucket. It's a little bit more curved than this one. Could have gone a little bit less curved, but I think that looks fine. Right, so now we need to go back into edit mode. And what we want to do is we want to separate this top and bottom piece. So making sure we press 3 to go into face mode and shift selecting the top and the bottom. We can then press P and selection. And what that does is it separates the two pieces. We have two separate models. And if I go back into this piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the backslash key on the numpad to isolate the view so I only see the piece that I'm working on. And I need to make the planks of wood, the pieces of wood that the bucket consists of. So let's see, press Alt and left click along there. And then Alt Shift left click every other column. Like so. Tick. Tick. We have an equal number. And then if we press Y, what this does is it separates the selected pieces from the rest of the pieces, but keeps it within the same mesh. It's now like that, but within the same mesh. And the reason I want to do this is because I'm going to put a solidify modifier on that. And when they're all connected, it will solidify in one piece. But with them disconnected like that, each one will solidify from its own normal direction. So you'll get separate planks. So let's go back into tab mode, go to the spanner icon, which is our modifier tab, click add modifier and solidifier. And I think what we need is bring this down to about 0.1415, 0.15. So minus 0.15, and then make sure we tick the even thickness. And you can see it's created some nice planks. Lovely. So that's looking good already. What I want to do now is I want to go into edit mode, and with the pieces that are selected, I'm just going to go G, Z and bring them up. Oh, no, sorry. I made a mistake there. Everybody make mistakes. Let's go press 2 to go into edge select. And we're just going to select. I'm going to select these randomly around the edge. The top edge of some random pieces. So let's G, Z, and now bring that up to about there. And then we want to select randomly about half of the rest of the pieces, and we can bring them up so they're not quite as high as that one. And then let's select the rest of the pieces like so, and just bring them up as well just a little bit. So we have an uneven edge around the top there, and I think that makes it look a bit more, even though it's supposed to be cartoony, it looks a little bit more realistic because it's not so even, it's not so perfect. So that's it. We have the planks of wood, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control and A that, so it is now full geometry. Right, let's bring it back and de-isolate. Back in front view. The next part. So next, I think we need to add these little loops on the top here that we've got where the rope ties onto. So let's select the main body of the bucket and go into edit mode. And with 7 on the num key, let's look at it from the top view. What I want to do is in face mode with 3, select this piece and this piece. And let's go into right orthographic so we can see what we're doing. And let's press E to extrude it and bring it up all the way to. Now that's a little bit cubed. It's very square. It's not curved at all. So let's go into edge select with number 2, and we're just going to select these 2 edges on this piece, and then on the other side, these 2 pieces here. And if we press Control and B, we can scroll out. Now, let's see, we can scroll out and make that more curved by scrolling up the mouse wheel twice. And let's move these so that they're roughly even squares. Let's have a look. And there we go. We have our nice little curved pieces. But as you can see, there is a hole through the middle of this other bucket. So we're going to do that by using a boolean. Okay, so let's go into object mode with tab and press 1 to go in front orthographic. Shift and A to bring up our add menu, mesh and cylinder. Now this cylinder, we only want about 8 vertices on. We don't need a lot of vertices for this. So we'll do it that way. And with the new cylinder selected, press R to rotate, Y on the Y-axis, 90 degrees. So it's now facing left to right. As you can see, it's a cylinder left to right. And we press S and X to bring it out, probably about there. And now if I press G and Z and bring it up so that it's sort of roughly where I want it. Not entirely where I want it, but roughly where I want it. We can press S and then Shift X to stop it from scaling on the X-axis and bring it right down to about the size of the hole that we want. And I'd say that was about the size, maybe there. And then we just reposition it into the location where we need it. I'd say about there would be perfect. Yeah, that looks about right. So let's select the bucket again. Go to add modifier, and click boolean. Now under object, you'll see we've got a little picker. Click on that and then click on our cylinder and make sure it's on difference. Now if we actually hide that, you can see there is a hole all the way through. So then we know that's worked. Let's bring that back. Control H, unhide. Oh, there's my boolean object from my original. Let's get rid of that, shall we? We'll delete that. So now let's select the bucket and we press Control A to apply the boolean, which means now that's permanent geometry. We don't actually need this, so let's X and delete that, which is what I should have done before. And as you can see, we got our nice little parts there. for the rope to go through. Now what I want to quickly do is I want to go into this piece here with tab into edit mode. Press 3 for face select. Select the bottom face, GZ, just to bring it up a bit, about there. And then the same with the top face, bring it down to whatever level you want your water. The lower that you go, though, obviously, the more that's going to happen is GZ. Eventually, you're going to have it sticking out, as you can see from there. So just be careful of that. You might have to scale it in the lower you go. But I think about there is about right. In fact, I think this is actually looking a little bit better than one that I did previously. So there we have the bucket. So let's give this a little bit of colour, shall we? So I want to select on the base and the water pieces, and then shift select on the bucket itself. Press Control and J to join them together. And let's go to the material tab, and we're going to press New. Now I'm just going to change it on this drop down here, add palette, because I've already added my palette. And if you've watched my low poly videos in the past, let's go into the UV editing screen there. You'll recognize this. And this is our color palette. It's split up into 4 sections. This is a texture that I've put together, and it's 4 sections. All these colors here are very, very rough colors. All these colors here are glossy. All these colors here are metallic, and all these will glow. I have now got that added to my model. If I go into the model and I press A and select everything, press U and reset. And what that does is it basically takes every single polygon and resets it to as close to a square as it can get, and layers it on top of each other. So everything is all on top of each other. And if I just switch over to material preview, you can see that's taken up the whole texture. But if I then select everything over here with A and press S0, and that brings that down to a tiny little dot, little 0 point dot, I can then G and move this around and choose a color. So I'm going to choose for this, I'm going to choose a nice browny sort of color, like so. But we're not finished yet, because a few of these pieces I want to change this color for. So basically, I want to make it look like there's more shadow than there actually is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in. I'm going to press Alt and click on the top there. I'm going to do the same for all of these pieces here. And then what I'm going to do is the same on the bottom there, like that. And then the bottom there, like that. And I'm also going to select this piece, and as much of these as possible. Basically, the only pieces that I haven't selected are the pieces in between these. Now, I actually do want to deselect these pieces here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use colour to give it a bit more shadow and a bit more shading. Deselect in here, like so. Might have been easier for me to just select all of these all the way around. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is G and move that to a darker brown over there. And it seems to have done it all. Oh, I see what I've done. Yeah, my apologies. I then want to press Control I and invert. Then I've got that deselected. And then what I can do is I can press G and move this into a darker color over here. So there you go. It brings it out. It highlights the edges and brings it out. Okay, So we've got the bottom, that's the right colour. Now we need to change this one. Now this one's going to be a very glossy blue colour. So let's find that on there. There we go. And let's move that to a very blue colour. I mean, you can choose whatever blue you want for this. Trying to find a nice colour for it. It's not the same colour as that, but I think that's actually better. Let's go into, yeah, that looks a lot better like that. And then we have our main bucket. Next, we need to add the rope. And we will do that by adding a torus. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the menu and I'm going to turn the screencast keys back on, because when you change layouts, for some reason it turns off screencast keys, which can be very annoying, but unfortunately it's part of the add-on. So let's position this a little bit better so we can see a bit better. We need to create a torus to go around here as our loop. So Shift A, Mesh, and torus. Now I don't need as many segments as that, so I'm going to knock that down to maybe 12 by 10. Yeah, that should be enough. And let's position it up here. Okay, with G. Press the period key on the numpad to focus in. And we want to rotate that RX 90, like so, and scale it right the way down so it's close into the side, the edges there. And just move it around, shift it around so that it looks like it's in the right place. Now, it's fine like that. Maybe needs a bit of moving up a little bit and then scaling down a little bit more so that it fits within that hole. And then maybe RX, rotate it backwards a bit, like so. Back a bit. But, you know, you could leave it like that, or you could go into edit mode, press 2 to go into edge select, and you could select these edges with Alt and left click if it will let me. There we go. And if you press O to turn on proportional editing, and then press G, you'll see that you'll get a circle around the cursor, and that makes the move tool a bit more dynamic, and it allows it to affect geometry nearby within the range of that sphere of influence. So let's move it there, and it just moves things a little bit more organically, in my opinion. We can then just move things around like so. Let's select 2 of these, and why has that come up? Like so. And just move them around and shift them around until you have something you like the look of. And that seems to be a bit. And it's just a matter of moulding and shaping things to the way you want it. So let's move that down there, scroll that up a little bit. And I think that's fine like that for now. Right, okay, back into object mode. Now, I'm not going to copy this across. I'm not going to recreate it on the other side, because what I want to do, I want to use a mirror modifier. So let's go over to the modifiers tab, a little spanner on the menu there, add modifier, and mirror. Doesn't seem to have done anything. Oh, wonder why. Because the origin to the item that we are mirroring is in the center of the item. So it is actually mirroring it, but it's actually mirroring it across itself. There's actually 2 copies of the same geometry there. We need to move this origin point somewhere where it will allow it to copy the geometry over to here. So we can do that in a couple of ways. We could quite easily make sure that the cursor is at the world origin point, the center there, and press press right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and that would work fine. Or an easier way, we could click on the little pipette there in the mirror modifier, click on our bucket, and look, it uses the bucket as a mirror point. And there we have our two little loops of rope on our handles ready for us to add the rest of the rope. Okay, a lot of people would use curves to do this, but I'm going to use good old-fashioned geometry. So let's focus in on our model here, go into edit mode, and let's take a look at this geometry. Now this has already selected this loop, so Control B, and let's bring it out a bit there. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to go 3 for face mode. I'm going to select 1, 2, 3, 4 faces, and I'm going to extrude those. But before I do that, I'm going to use another tool, which is a free add-on built in with Blender, and just have to turn it on by going to Edit Preferences, and under the add-on tab, type loop into the search box and tick the little white box. And what this does is it adds an extra menu onto your end menu called Loop Tools under the Effects tab, or is it Edit tab? Yes, it's the Edit tab. And under there, you've got Circle. If you click Circle, it turns that mesh into a nice little circle. So what I'm going to do is just from the front, just rotate that a little bit with the proportional editing on. Yeah, that should do. And then E to extrude and G to move. And I'm going to move that down to about there. And I'm just going to move it forward, G, Y, move it forward to about there. And now this piece here, I need to rotate slightly. So let's R and rotate that way. And then R and rotate that way. And we can extrude that as well. So what we want to do is we want to get a rough, very low poly line going round and joining up in the middle. So let's rotate that back up there and rotate it around there. Maybe scale that up a little bit because it's shrunk a bit. And then E to extrude and bring it there. And then again from the top, rotate that round a little bit. Yeah. Oops. And look what's gone on there. This is because we don't have clipping turned on in our mirror modifiers. We just tick this little box, clipping, and when we G, and when it touches, it locks together. And then if we just delete them ends, we have our rope. Now, obviously, that's a little bit more jagged. We've got to put a couple more edge loops in there just to give it more definition, a bit more shape, and we've got to move it around a little bit, just to shape it around everything, like so. Okay, and let's bring that back a bit there. Now I think that looks about right. So now what we can do to make it look a little bit smoother is we can select all of these pointy edges, these corners, the edges on all these corners, press Control B, and then bring them up. And let's scroll 1, 2 times on the scroll wheel there. And there we have a much better line. Look at it coming down, and it looks as if it's dropped down. Okay, so we need to color this. So let's go in there, select everything, U, reset it so that it's all one big square on there. Now, if we hover over this window now and press A to select everything, then S to scale and 0. It's not doing anything. The reason being is we've got the proportionality on. So S 0, there we go. And we need to make this a rope sort of colour. So let's sort of take a look what we could do with it. It's got to be one of these rough colours because rope's rough, and it's got to be a very light sort of colour. And maybe there. And of course, it's not showing up on the actual model because I haven't actually given it the texture. So let's give that the texture. And I think, yes, that looks about right there. Okay, now we're on to the final stage. We're now going to add the metal bands that hold the bucket together. So let's turn off that. We don't need that. Let's focus in on our new bucket. And what I want to do is I'm going to go into edit mode, turn on face mode with 3. I'm going to select the top face and the bottom face. As you can see, they're selected. And Shift D to duplicate them, right click to set them back into position, press P and selection to separate them into separate objects. So we now have 2 separate objects with a copy of the bottom and top. So let's go into that model, select everything. I'm going to press U to unwrap and reset so that all of the UVs are reset. And then over here, press A, S to scale, 0 to bring it down into a tiny little dot. And let's find a nice metallic colour, say sort of mid-range there. Okay, so that looks about right. So next what I want to do is I want to scale everything out on the X and the Y axis, but not the Z axis. So press S and then Shift and Z to exclude the Z axis, and then just scale them out. Just bring them out just so they're outside the scope of the main part of the geometry. And that looks about right. And then what we can do is we can go I and inset so that it comes back so it's inside the geometry, about halfway through the inside of the geometry there. And then X, F to delete those. We've now got a loop going around. Now, if we press A and select everything, we can then press E to extrude, and it goes up on the Z axis. And we give it nice thick bands like so. And what I'm going to do is clear the selection, select this loop and GZ to bring it down. Bring it down to about there. Now, obviously, that's out on there is a little bit far out, to be honest. So let's select the outside edge loop with Alt left click. And I'm going to press S and Shift Z, excluding the Z, to bring it in like so. We just want to bring it in as close as we can. And we also want to try and follow the contour. So what we want to do is go to the edge, select this bottom edge. We can just scale that in a little bit so that it follows the contours a little bit more. And there we have it. We have our cartoon style bucket. All we need to do now is to hide the original, select everything and apply all the modifiers. So let's go through and apply the modifier on there. Have I got any modifiers on there? No. So what I can do now is shift select everything and join them together to one piece. And I can bring back my turntable here and go to layout, switch it into rendered mode and turn on the camera. And there we go. One bucket. Let's hide the turntable base though. One bucket rotating on screen. Well, I hope you've learned something from this video. I know it's not up to my normal standard. I've been away for nearly a year and I'm a little bit rusty. So hopefully I will be getting better very soon. Thank you very much for watching and I hope to see you